Hi, it's Jan Beta, and today we're going to take a look at something pretty amazing, the ISEVIC, which is a cartridge port based HDMI output module for the Commodore 64. This is a project by
Bloodmosher,
who kindly sent me this, who seems to be a very friendly person despite the nickname there. This is a cartridge for the Commodore 64 that listens to the signals on the cartridge port and uses an FPGA board to convert them into an HDMI output. And we're going to check this out in several actual C64s and see what it can do. First of all, let's talk about some of the specs. So, as I said, this uses an FPGA core that is on a little Tang Nano board that is on this top PCB here. The bottom PCB basically just is the cartridge port, and the cartridge port is also passed through, so you can use this with regular cartridges for your Commodore 64. The little adapter board on the bottom here just has some level shifters and some very minor electronics. Most of the magic is happening in this Tang Nano 20K developer board that's stuck on top here. And all of this is openly available, including the file to program the FPGA. There is a GitHub for everything, the Gerbers for the circuit boards, a link to where to get these Tang Nano boards. So you should be able to make this yourself pretty easily and cost effectively. There are two videos by Bloodmosher himself going into a bit of detail about how to install this and what it can do. I'm going to link them in the video description as well as the GitHub. So the plan is also to make the file for the FPGA open source. It's not open yet. It's openly available, but it's not open sourced yet. But this is a really early stages project, and Bloodmosher donated this to me to check out and to show you. Thank you for that. I'm super excited about this actually because there's not many ways of getting native HDMI out of a C64, as you probably know if you are following this stuff. And the video quality of the C64 output originally is not very great. There are some solutions now to get component video from a C64, and there is also the VIC2 Kavari that I talked about in a video a while back that can output HDMI actually with the help of an FPGA sitting in the VIC2 socket and replacing the VIC2 altogether. This thing still needs a VIC2 chip in the C64 from what I understand, and it also needs to be hooked up to some signals, 3 pins on the CPU to be able to fully work, but we're going to take a look at that later. This should be compatible with all the newer PAL versions of the VIC2 chip and all the NTSC versions, except for the first revision and the Dreen VIC2. That's a special chip they used there. They're not supported for now. And also this doesn't work on the C64 Reloaded Mark II board. But other than that, it should be pretty much plug and play on all Commodore 64 models. The output from this is 1280 by 720 pixels, which is a resolution that most modern monitors can handle. The pass-through port here also should support most things. One thing that doesn't work reportedly is the Easy Flash 3, but even the 1541 Ultimate 2 works, the Backbit cartridge works, several fast loader cartridge, and all the games that Bloodmosher was able to test work through this pass-through port while using the HDMI output. Of course, you're still going to have the regular composite and S-video output and the RF output from your C64 while using this, because this just uses the signals from the cartridge port and you don't have to replace the VIC2 chip. The only downside to this, obviously, is that you still have to open up your C64 at least one time and clip these little clips onto some of the pins of the processor. This works without these, but as soon as software addresses the memory in non-standard ways, which happens for most games actually, this is not going to work correctly and display an incorrect picture output. But for the basic screen, you can just plug this in and have your basic picture. We're going to try that in a second. I'm just going to find some suitable C64s. Let me take a couple of seconds to thank the sponsor for this video, PCBWay, my favorite manufacturer of prototype PCBs of all kinds. And they are currently celebrating their 11th anniversary, so there's a lot of discounts and all kinds of nice things to explore. Apart from circuit boards, they can also do 3D printing, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, basically everything the tinkerer needs. Pricing is super reasonable and they are very friendly people to work with. I highly recommend checking out the website linked in the video description. Back to our ISEVIC. So here's my end of the year project for last year, which is a bog standard Commodore 64C with a short board in it. Let's just quickly check if this still works at all. In normal operation, this is just a composite output. Pretty clear picture. So let's see what it does if I just put the ISEVIC in there without connecting the processor pins. It should display the basic screen fine, I guess. Yeah, and this sits in here super sturdily. And we can, of course, put another cartridge in here as well. Just plugging this into the HDMI port. Let's see what it does. So technically this should just work, unless we run something more involved graphically. Yeah, I see a picture. Nice! And I don't feel any lag at this point. Picture is crystal clear, of course, because it's HDMI. This works so far. Let's try and make it crash, I guess. I have my backbit cartridge here. Just going to plug that in and start something. Let's see. Let's see if the backbit works. Takes a while to start up. Interestingly, the picture looks like an NTSC C64, so the borders are a bit smaller than what I'm used to and what we've seen before here. So the bottom and the top border are a bit narrower than what I'm used to. But this is probably exactly what you're going to see on an NTSC machine. This probably even works for something like River Raid and things like that are not too demanding on the hardware. Yep. Oh, and the scrolling looks super smooth. This is just a very old TV, so it's not in any way gaming centered or anything like that. It's probably got quite some lag in itself, but I'm used to the lag from my crappy upscaler that I use for testing on this monitor all the time, which has like half a second delay or something ridiculous like that. And this should be just basically no delay. The only delay we're seeing is the monitor interpreting the HDMI signal, which should be pretty much instant. As you probably know, if you're using any modern day gaming console or stuff like that, modern TVs are much better at this, and this one is not a modern TV. It's just a saved, trash-picked, saved TV that I've been using for a long time now, after repairing it. And the FPGA in here even has some SID emulation going on, so we get sound through the HDMI, just not the original SID sound. It is an emulated, software emulated FPGA SID, but as you probably know, emulated SID sounds have come quite a long way. Yeah, this looks like it's working fine. Get some stutter here and there, but that might be because it's not properly adjusted. And the scrolling, as you can maybe see, I'm not sure if it translates well on camera. I'm going to do some capturing of this in a second. Scrolling looks super smooth. Let's try something slightly more demanding maybe. Yeah, so far so good. Let's see if that works. Even that works, that's amazing. And yeah, the SID emulator does its thing. It's all purely coming from our ISEVIC now. Yeah! Even this seems to work fine. Okay, and now it stopped working. As soon as it gets a bit more demanding, it stops working. So let's hook up our wires and see if that helps. This is very impressive. This is literally just the cartridge with the extra connections just floating. It works really well so far. There was some stutter, but I think that's just a matter of setting up the clock for the VIC-2, exactly like the clock for the ISEVIC, for the FPGA clock. You have to synchronize these, but there's a feature built in to do that. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Let me connect the pins on the processor that we need for this to fully work. But color me impressed so far. Even the SID emulation doesn't sound completely crap. I would guess it's on the same level as at least the Nano Swin SID or something like that. Sounds decent enough to play games and have that displayed on the large screen. That's a feature that's highly demanded, of course, because what's a C64 without SID sound? Nothing really. And we're going to have to open up the machine, but it's going to be worth it from what I've seen so far. So let's do that. And yeah, we are going to have to use these clips to connect some of the processor pins here. Maybe we can even put them through here. Yep, that works. Just going to put them through the cartridge port. That's probably an elegant way of doing that. And then we can fit this in here. Yep. That works beautifully. So this here is our CPU, 8500 in this case, or 6510 in the older Commodore 64s. And we have these three wires. The blue one is connected to the pin header on this end here, and I assume that's the first one. That should be connected to pin 27. So we have a 40-pin chip here, so this is pin 20. This is the pin 1, top of the chip basically. Pin 20 is the last one on this side. And then we go 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 20, up to 40. So we need to connect these wires to pin 27, 28 and 29 with these little clips that are made for clipping to IC legs. So this should be relatively easy to do, I guess. So, okay, these should all be connected correctly. Let's see if this works better. Let's see if we can play this for a while now. With the CPU pins connected, it should just work fine. Yeah, this works better than before, at least. Yeah, it seems to do fine, actually. And the lag, there's none to speak of. This just plays like, basically plays like on a CRT. But there is going to be a little bit of lag introduced by my crappy monitor here, but at least for playing something like this. I don't notice it. And I've played this game like a million times, with and without lag. Before I do any more experiments with this, I want to adjust the clock of the C64 correctly, and there's a little trimmer on the PCB for that, next to the VIC-2 chip on all C64 models I've seen, and the ISEVIC has a mode built in for that purpose. You have to push one of the buttons on the FPGA board to get to that. Let's see if we can access that mode. So there's two buttons on the FPGA board. This one is a reset, I think, in this version, and this one is the button we press for the adjustment. And then we see two numbers here, apart from the ISEVIC 1.0 by Bloodmosher. And the first number is the Commodore 64's clock speed. That should be 985,248 That's pretty close. The first 3 digits of the second number are the line number that the VIC is on at the top of the FPGA's video frame. The second 3 digits are the same thing but for the previous frame. And when the clock is calibrated correctly, the second number is always 1 higher than the first. For 43 and 44. Yeah, that seems to be pretty much correct. The last 2 digits are the frames skipped. The numbers are supposed to change very slowly, which they are not. So I'm just going to go in and show you the adjustment. Sometimes these C64s can be super out of sync, and sometimes to an extent where they don't work on regular monitors through the regular AV out. I've seen that a couple of times where they only display a black and white picture or no picture output at all, or just some out of sync lines. If that happens, one of the first things you should try is adjusting the little CT1 trimmer capacitor that we're going to adjust. You need a non-magnetic, non-conductive tool for that, otherwise it's going to screw up your measurements. I have a little plastic screwdriver for that is exactly made for the purpose, so it should be fine. There is also very inexpensive ceramic tools for that nowadays that you can use. I'm just going to try with my plastic screwdriver here. So on these 250469 boards, the short boards, the trimmer is right here next to the little 8701 timing chip. This is the VIC-2 chip, conveniently hidden under my heatsink here in this case, but this is the trimmer you want to adjust. So let's see if I can get that to something that is closer to what we need even. It's really close already. And of course we're going to use very tiny little increments here. And it says in the GitHub that the measurement from the ISEVIC is not 100% accurate, but yeah, it's changing. That's already better than before. Yeah, we're between 47 and 48 now. Yeah, it's pretty close. Let's see if we can get that to stay on 48 maybe. We skipped 3 frames. This should be better set up than before by a tiny little bit at least. Okay, I'm going to try some games and stuff and some demos probably and see how well this actually works in a real life scenario. The Kung Fu Flash seems to work just fine actually, which is nice. Which I don't think was tested really before. And usually what I see when trying this game, if the VIC-2 chip works for most stuff, this is one of the things that always tells me if it's not working correctly. If there's something slightly off with the VIC-2, sprites are going to flicker in this and the scrolling is slightly off. But this seems to look as it's supposed to look. And I still can't feel any lag. Which makes sense because the picture is generated by the FPGA. It's emulating a VIC-2 basically from the signals of the cartridge port. It's quite amazing to me that that even works. But yeah, it does. And it does so quite well. And I guess there's going to be some little modifications and things like that to the code. Yeah, I don't think I get any hiccups now, even with the smooth scrolling. That's pretty impressive. Okay, let's try something else. Yeah, the 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus just works fine, just as the Kung Fu Flash worked. Yeah, this looks very good. I think this is an interlaced picture even. It's going over the border. There's a little line there on the border that's not supposed to be there. But it's really impressive. Yeah, it seems all the graphics tricks are working. I'm going to try some more stuff and report back, I guess. But this looks like it's supposed to be, I think. Okay, that is very, very impressive given the fact that this just sits in the cartridge port and has 3 little connections to the CPU. This does a very good job of that. There's some flicker there, and some of the border things don't work correctly. Yeah, but this is like high-end, super involved stuff, and as I said, this is version 1.0. And also this was developed in the United States, so probably more focused on NTSC machines. That's very impressive. Yeah, the picture quality is absolutely amazing, of course, because it's absolutely sharp edges. We don't get any flicker anymore after setting the C64's clock up correctly. It's also a nice tool for setting that up correctly. So I'm now set up with the ISEVIC in my streaming corner of the lab, which you normally don't see from this perspective, and it looks a bit messy. But I'm going to show you some captured footage of the output of the ISEVIC now. So this is the setup. For some reason, I found that my instant loading cartridges, so the 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus and the Kung Fu Flash and the Backbit, kind of messed up the experience a bit in that they introduced graphics glitches to the ISEVIC output. I'm not sure if that's due to my cartridges being particularly worn out or something. I guess so. At least the 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus and the Backbit have been tested by Bloodmosher and appear to work fine. Maybe it's the difference between the PAL C64 and the NTSC C64s that Bloodmosher probably mostly owns because he's in the United States. I'm not sure. Long story short, I'm now using my old school SD to IEC to load stuff, and that works absolutely fine without any graphics glitches, apart from very few hiccups in some more involved stuff. I'm just going to show you the graphics output and play some games. I'm sure this is not going to be as smooth as on a real good monitor because this is captured and my video frame rate is different than the frame rate the C64 outputs, and so is the ISEVIC. This is running at 50 Hz now, so I'm capturing at 50 Hz, but the video is probably 25 frames, so it's going to be less smooth than in real life, but you're still going to see a better representation of the video output from the ISEVIC through HDMI into my capture card. I connected the audio output from the C64 to my capturing device now, so you're going to hear an ARM SID, which is what happens to be on this C64 board. This is not the SID emulation by the ISEVIC, which is completely fine, but you can totally use a real SID, or in this case an ARM SID, with the picture from the ISEVIC. So that's what I'm going to capture. Long story short, let's load up some games and stuff. Let's try that. So this works absolutely fine. There's not much scrolling going on in this game, but it is what it is. Everything looks just like the original. That's Mr. Heli, and it's absolutely smooth with 8 sprites and border sprites. The only thing that is cut off is the outer border, where there's another line on that press fire to start logo there. Otherwise, it looks good. Just a reminder that this is the output from the ISEVIC, so the only output from the actual C64 is the sound. And the capture is 1920 by 1080, so full HD, just straight through my HD60S Elgato. And as you can see, it's pretty accurate to the screen resolution of a regular Commodore 64 PAL model, except the borders are cut off on the top and the bottom slightly, but that doesn't really affect gameplay or anything that much. And you can see in the scroll text now that it's really smooth. It appears really smooth to me, at least on the monitor here that I've hooked up through the HD60S. Actually, that's the pass-through. Yeah, and that looks pretty amazing. That's probably a good example of the scrolling. Yeah, color me impressed by this piece of new hardware. Brand new, actually. I think this is the first video about this device, except for the two videos that are already available from Bloodmosher at this point. Of course, there are some quirks. There's so much software for this machine that inevitably there's going to be some glitches and stuff, but as soon as this gets into the hands of more people, I'm sure these can be worked out. I repeat myself, but given the fact that this is just sitting in the cartridge port and just gets 3 signals from the processor here, it's pretty impressive. You don't even have to do any soldering or anything like that. And the pass-through port also seems to work with most stuff, especially the Ultimate 2 Plus that I used all the time. Seems to work absolutely no problems whatsoever. Some graphics glitches, as we've seen. There's so many variables. of course, so many slightly different systems these days, slightly tuned systems. Things have been replaced with non-standard parts, as in this case, but still, it holds up really well. And I think this is going to go a long way, hopefully. I hope you get a chance to check this out. As I said, everything you need to know and download and buy is in the GitHub. You can easily make these yourself. They're not for sale as far as I know at this point, but maybe that's going to change in the near future once word is out, which I'm trying to help do with this video. Special thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon and on Ko-fi and on PayPal and on LiberaPay and on the YouTube channel memberships page and elsewhere. The links to that are on my website and in the video description. Hope to see you again on this channel sometime. I'm Jan Beta. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.